Good evening, and welcome to the January 31st, 2024 meeting of the Wareham Town Finance Committee. It's 6:30 p.m. We are meeting in room 27 of Wareham Town Hall, and in the absence of both, I will call this meeting to order in the absence of both our clerk and our vice chair. I will call the roll tonight, and I will start with Dom Camerano.
Present.
Jerry Stefanski.
Here.
Heidi Churchill.
Here.
Jody Smith is with us remotely.
Here.
Norma Scoggin, I'm here. That's 5 members. We have a quorum. And we also have as a guest select board member Alan Slavin and our town administrator Derek Sullivan is here to speak with us. We're going to start with first item on the agenda, which is approval of the November 29th and December 7th meeting minutes. And I get a motion on November 29th. I believe Dominic was not here for that meeting. Our custom is not to vote on the minutes for meetings we're not at. I do not believe that's a requirement, but I know that's our custom.
I vote to approve the November 29th, 2023 minutes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, we're going to have a roll call vote because this is a hybrid meeting. Jody?
Yes.
Dom?
Abstained.
Jerry?
Yes.
Yes.
Heidi, yes, and I say yes. That's 401. All right, minutes of the December 7th meeting, in which we did not have a quorum, and the only people present were myself, Jerry, and Matt, and only 2 of us are here. I don't know that we even have to approve minutes where we didn't have a quorum. Okay, so we will pass on that one this evening. All right.
I just want to make a comment. I think that Kelly, who does the minutes, that does an exceptional job on these, really.
Absolutely does. She got these done for me. I sent her a request last week to have them done for tonight's meeting. She's always on it, and I really do appreciate that. All right. Next item on the agenda is a presentation and discussion of the fiscal year 24 year-to-date revenue and expense report by Derek Sullivan, our town administrator, who I believe you're just barely in the picture on the screen.
Hi, Jody.
And the massive audience out there as well.
And others. I actually, in the chaos, I didn't bring that with me, but just going through it, it's, we're on track. When you look at it, you'll see that you have the sort of the encumbered amount of the budget, the expenditures year to date. You'll also see if there's been any, transfers in and out, which is usually a town meeting action or a reserve fund transfer. We haven't asked for any reserve funds. So expense-wise, we're on track. Nothing is, really too scary. I think we just had our, Maya does your workers' comp audit roughly mid-year. And there was a large increase on there, so I'm looking at it on top of everything the past few days, going through all their audit notes, trying to figure out sort of what's happened. I think some of it's been stemming from the last year was a pretty good increase to some of the budgets, which meant salary increases. And so that's always a year behind. So while we factored in an increase based on the historic, that was just sort of a blip. I think we'll have about, we will need a transfer probably from the reserve fund, or we can do, I'd probably do it that way rather than any other sort of transfer. It's a nice simple, and it'll be under 20,000. I'm just ticking and tying. There's a couple repeat costs, and I just want to make sure I've got all the weeks down, how many we have left in the year. We still have close to 23 weeks, surprisingly, with what's already been hit against ours. So that's really the only one that I would see as any sort of issue, not even really a major issue. And I then had to adjust the FY25 budget, thinking about that as well. So revenues, again, revenues are usually the quarterly. The big jump you'll see on the revenues is the investment income, over $400,000. And that's, I think the previous fiscal year, we closed out '23 at about $500+ thousand total investment income. And I went back to see just historically what the rates were, just comparing a CD rate back then, which was about 1.75 versus the 4.5 to potentially 5 you get now. So that looks good. We know that'll be a good surplus for us this year. And if it keeps on trending that way, as long as our balances don't change too much, we don't have big expenses, we could factor in about $1 million to $1.2 million on that. That you'll see has impacted the FY25 budget thought process as well. So I don't know if anybody that's seen anything, there was anything of major
Now, I
concern.
looked over everything and everything looks reasonable, revenue and expenses. And the interest expense to today, the Federal Reserve kept
Yeah.
rates the same.
Yeah,
And they probably won't do any, if anything, 2 cuts this year, so I think going what you did with the interest income is pretty solid for, yeah.
we'll have to consider the next fiscal budget on that, just know that, just keep a watch on it, but,
So that's the upside to the higher interest rates.
yeah, there's a good and a bad. Luckily, over the course of the time, we've been prudent in our money management, and we have a fund balance, so that's helpful. Which may segue into the next topic.
Let me just check. Jody, do you have any comments or questions for Derek?
Oh, no, it looked good. I looked, everything was right around 50% or below. So I thought it was excellent.
By the way, Jody, your video is not on. I don't know if that's intentional or not. Maybe you're in your casual vacation mode, but just want to make sure you know that we're not seeing you, we just see your name.
I don't know how to.
Down at the bottom of the screen, there should be a little video camera with something crossed through it. And if you.
I got the mute thing there
Yeah.
crossed the way. I don't see the video.
You don't see the video, okay. Well, we miss you, but I guess we'll just have to deal with that.
It's just a voice from the ether
It's
now.
just a voice, but we recognize the voice, we
Yeah.
recognize it. Okay, if there's nothing else then on that item, shall we move on?
Well, I'm sorry, Norma.
Oh, sorry, yes, go Don.
Can we question any of the revenue, any of the expenses yet?
That, we're not into the
Not today.
budget yet.
That's fine.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then you're going to go into we're going to have the all-day hearing on the 8th. So
So we're
really,
not gonna go into nothing here now.
I really thought of this as more of the
That's
fixed
okay.
cost and revenue.
It's okay,
Yeah,
no
so-
problem.
But if you've got a permanent one,
No, I was gonna ask about some of the higher increase ones, but I'll wait till that day. I have no problem at all with that.
okay.
All right. So, in that case, shall we move on to item C, the presentation and discussion of the FY25 proposed budget? And so, as Derek just mentioned, he's gonna give us some of the information, but we do have the all-day workshop coming up a week from tomorrow, Thursday, which will provide us a good bit more information and an opportunity for questions.
Yeah, and there's, because it'll be good, some of the department heads were proposing some changes to departments, I think will be more in line for the current needs of the residents and making the operation more functional with how things continue to change. So, but let's get down to the FY25 budget. This budget, we went through the COVID hits and we had to do the 10% reduction. We've had some challenging times. This one is probably one of the more challenging as the hits kept on coming each and every time, which culminated with the state aid, more specifically Chapter 70, the state aid and assessments or lack thereof of the aid. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go through the lines, and if there's to explain some of them, if there's a question, No problem, just interrupt during it while we're on, if that's okay.
That's fine with me.
Real estate taxes, all right, so you see what your taxes, how you get the new taxes is you'll take the fiscal '24, the real estate taxes, so the 4.68, the 2.5 authorized. So that's where you get, when everybody talks about 2.5, it's not your own property, it's the, if you will, the big levy base that you can increase by the 2.5% there. So that brings in about 1.17, and then last year we had good new growth. A couple of the solar projects had come online, which brought it up higher than our estimates at the 890,000. So you take those three lines, because you don't take the excluded debt as a, and you bring that, and that becomes your new real estate taxes to basically increase by the 2.5%. So now you see your 2.5% increase is the 1.22 million. New growth, speaking with the assessing department, going back and forth, we've been hovering around the 450, 500,000 range. I brought it in about 500. Historically, we've, after the past 3-4 years, the lowest has been 450, but we've been over the $500,000 mark. We have a couple projects coming in line that we will also pick up on new growth, and a couple new phases of some other projects. So you think the 500,000 is a safe bet. Interestingly enough, I sometimes go back in history, so I went back into in sort of the early and mid 2000s, and they were averaging from 700 to 900,000 in new growth. So with a much lower budget, those are great pickups to get during that time. So you see that our new sort of with the property tax, including the debt exclusion, we're at $52,313,204, which is, if you include the debt exclusion, about 1.72 million higher than the previous fiscal year. Now we get, we call them the intergovernmental transfers. This is our state aid. The school, Chapter 70, you can see it went up a whopping $67,320. So I know there was a slight decrease in some of the enrollment, but also just the Chapter 70, it's abysmal. I know that some of the school committee members were truly shocked because they thought with the ESSER grants going away that the Commonwealth would help a little more. That clearly did not happen. And then what's even worse is you'll see with the charter schools, the charter school reimbursements is only $6,463, and later on you'll see there was a substantial increase. So it's almost seems like it was an afterthought. So their total new aid is $73,783.
Is this, what we're getting, was that the expectations a couple of years back? That eventually something's gonna catch up with the state budget, or?
Well, no, what you think, especially with the low-income school, when they talked about, especially the governor's office, saying that they were focusing on that, I expected, they talked about a 4% increase to Chapter 70, which is what I think they might have done, but clearly we did not get that. We had a higher, and if you look back in '23, they really increased the charter school reimbursement. And then what happened was in '24, you got a big increase on the Chapter 70, but a decrease on the charter. So, it's, this year they decided to do neither. You didn't get the other.
So, one question I have, there's been a lot of, like you said, the governor's sort of story is that this is a year of big increase in school aid. It's not coming to us. Is it the minimum school aid that's going to other districts that we don't get?
Yeah, looking at it, I was trying to factor in whether it was the decrease in enrollment from some of the kids, which,
And that's gotta be part of it.
so you'd lose it, but even if you get the minimum, so that's $30 per pupil. You've got about, 2,200, that's your $66,000 right there. So, and in the past, they talked about the Chapter 70 hold harmless, that you would get aid no matter what as your enrollment went down. I mean, our enrollment's down well over 1,000 kids from the higher points about a decade ago. So, and I will tell you, my sort of frustration was the fair share tax, aka the millionaire's tax, the extra 4% above $1 million in earnings, is the one state revenue that's trending higher than expectations, substantially higher. So I know they put the money into the Chapter 90s so it brought it up to 300 million for at least 1 year. I'm going to guess that's going to not continue on in the future, but you'll see that my expectation was the rest of that money would be for districts like ours that have a higher poverty rate within it, and special needs students. However, the focus has been on the community colleges, which is great, but the tuition, but how this was sold to us, this is my memory, and I don't think it's a Mandela effect, was that it was for education, more specifically, elementary school, secondary education, things like that. And that was the expectation, that with that trending higher, I looked at that with some of the increases, and I was factoring in a 3 to 4% increase to our Chapter 78, which wasn't drastic, but it was something. It wasn't a rounding error in the budget, if you will.
0.41%.
Yeah, so those numbers got released on, I believe, Thursday. At the same time, I was calling Roger from Upper Cape Cod Tech. This was a shocking one to me, and had a lot scrambling trying to make this work. So we'll continue on. So,
It's a work in progress.
yeah. Unrestricted general government aid, the consensus revenue for the Commonwealth was 2%. The governor, usually what they do is unrestricted general government aid is based on that consensus revenue. The governor did bring it up to 3%. But 3% on our end is $70,000. The next line is veterans benefits. That's actually 75% reimbursement of what we pay out to veterans in our community, and it's a great thing. And this is the reimbursement that we get. So there's, I think after COVID and some other things, there's been a higher need. So there's been some increases. The exemptions, really nothing there. $17 state-owned land, which I thought was a big, one of the big promises, that there was going to be a good jump in the payment in lieu of taxes for state-owned land. But that was $883. So total town, the general government was $110,053. So our total new state aid was $183,863. 836, so, or 0.93%.
Not even 1%.
So, here's sort of the good news is we've been together for a few years. For most of us, that we're conservative in our local receipts, and this does go against my sort of trend as you know. So we're looking at it, and we'll go through the lines. Motor vehicle excise tax, bring it up to 3.2 million, which is $75,000 increase. That is about 90% of what we actually collected in FY23. So we'll never try and do 100% on that. You want to keep it. So if you have some negative variance, no big issue. Local meals, a little bit, 25,000, sort of same thing. Local rooms occupancy excise, same thing. Boat excise, it's usually a timing of the boat excise bills as to when they go out as well. So we range between 40 and 55,000. I believe we will be more in the $55,000 dollar range in FY24, but you can't go over what you actually received in the full prior fiscal year. So putting it right at the 40. So the next is the cannabis revenue. This is the not the fees, the impact fees, but the actual excise that we receive. And you know, we were at 1.2 million at one point with everything. And as we always said, that was going to be our highest and best year. We were number 3 or 4 in the Commonwealth. You know, I remember sitting out there with then Chief Walsek and seeing the rental cars from the Cape coming over out there. People were very concerned when they saw the chief, and I think they wanted us to move along because we were scaring customers. But, you know, and again, with everything that's going on, I think keeping it at the 150,000 range is sound. I don't have faith in the way things are continuing. The market, as of last year, basically bottomed out. Now I think they're seeing a little bit of an increase because there was so much supply and, you know, and not as much demand because the market was so saturated. Penalties and interests, you know, this a lot of time is when people are back on their taxes, things such as that. Interesting, one of the interesting things was during the COVID, during the epidemic, when people were getting some of the government funds. I was talking to John Foster. People were using that to pay their tax bills a lot of months, especially on the past due from their homes and such, which was interesting. It was kind of a neat trend to see that was actually utilized in something that was sort of helpful for people. So, so as people pay some of those past dues, you're not earning as much interest, and there's an ebb and a flow to it. So we'll keep that again around 90% of actual collections, maybe, you know, just slightly higher. Fees. This includes the last year of the cannabis impact fees. This is something we have not been pushing the cannabis retailers and the other ones to pay the impact fees when we saw the rulings beforehand. I know of one that had continued on. Uxbridge just had to pay back their retailer, which was, I think, one of the first in the Commonwealth, about 1.2 million after a lawsuit. So, and again, we've sort of held off on a lot of those, so we'll see what shakes out. But it is one of the worst things I've ever seen. The Cannabis Control Commission is absolutely terrible. They said retroactively that your contracts are no good retroactively, and it is abysmal. And that's how Uxbridge was caught like that. And my thought is, a contract is a contract. If you're changing the law, it's not retrospectively, it's from that day prospectively.
Should be.
Yeah, so
Should be,
it's
you're right.
I think it's an absolute failure from the Commonwealth on that, because that's what that revenue was supposed to be. Again, this is one of the things that was sold to the communities. It was going to be great revenue for the communities. This was going to fill a lot of gaps, and to take that away, it's terrible. So just going through the rentals, that's a couple different things. The Old Town Hall, where WCTV is, we have a tower in here that we rent out that it's going to have to go out for bid within the next year or so. T-Mobile rents it for, you know, for their internet, for one of their cell
Cell
phones.
signal.
Yeah. Ironically, we use Verizon, but that's another match for the rest of the town. And then from the Oak Grove School, we get about $1,000 a month from that. So nothing too crazy.
Well, a quick question on the Oak Grove School, will that change when the Head Start group leaves there?
No, with our lease is with the Oak Grove Cape Verdean Cultural Council. So the licenses and permits, this has been, if you look, 23 was a really good year. It had been a little lower beforehand, but in projecting out what we're seeing for some of the projects, we've brought it up to about 1.4 million. And also, there's a couple things we're doing with down in inspectional services that we're proposing to change around. Some staffing, as well as fully implement the 40U program, which allows you to actually put the fines onto people's real estate taxes. And that's not, we're not talking about somebody whose kids are leaving their toys out in the yard. We're talking about the ones that are nuisance and problem properties that are impacting their neighbors and the livelihood of people. So I also look at saying that I believe that will bring some more licenses and permits as people are bringing some of the things into order. And, that some of them will be triple hits to the folks, especially the ones where it's been years of us sending them letters. So next up is fines and forfeits, just sort of is what it is. Investment income's the big one, again, just under 550,000 in FY23 for the full fiscal year. And as you saw in there, we're over 400,000 in the first quarter of this fiscal year. So bringing it up to 700,000, I think, is prudent. Again, we think it's at some point, I don't know if rates will ever go down to such historic lows again, but it's ever since our sort of first Great Recession, they've gone from 6 to 7, then back down again, and now we've gone up. So who knows what's going to happen? I wouldn't bring it any higher than the 700, just in case if something, the economy falls out and there's drastic liquidity needs and they cut the rates. So that's a big increase. As you can see, we traditionally were about 150,000 based off of actual collections in FY22. That's one of the game savers. I won't say another word saver. So Medicaid, that's for the payments for the students with special needs or some medical that we receive. There's a Medicaid building company as well, and this is something directly for the students. Miscellaneous recurring, that's just some that I have it broken down actually, so I apologize I didn't bring it, but that's that declined a little bit. Then miscellaneous non-recurring, you're not allowed to budget that. Those are one-time things that have come in. So even though we collected that money in FY23, it's not guaranteed in any sort, so you can't budget it. So all told, where we had the abysmal state aid, upon trying to balance this out, we brought up the local receipts to a little over 8 million, which is a $775,000 increase. The biggest portion of that is investment income. So that's what we need to know, that that's not going to be every single year. This is a one-time fix that could slightly decline in the future.
Do you think that license and permits, the 1,000,004, is pretty solid for the future?
Yeah, I think we're good on that with what we're still seeing.
Recording in progress.
We're still seeing the building, the needs. There's a couple proposed projects as well that could be, once they start getting, if they get licensed, could come in.
Even with the sewer moratorium.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see too is with a couple different things. One, you've seen the activities that we're doing. Maybe the thing over in Swift's Beach, that's clearing up 30,000 gallons a day. There's some other ones that have been cleaned up, and I think the sewer moratorium is going to kind of move a little bit to the wayside. Would be my prediction, but that's a voting body, so I can't tell you what they're going to do. It's what I think about it. We have a really great director over there that I'm very impressed with him, and there's a they're making some sound financial decisions. I'm also thinking that there's going to have to be almost impact fees for bringing new developments on, which would help offset the cost to reduce flow. The easiest way for us to reduce flow is to stop the inflow and infiltration. The easiest way to do that is, let's call it pipe relining or something like that. So a real simple basic thing, as you say, it costs X amount of dollars to fix a milo pipe, which is giving us, Y amount of inflow and infiltration, and then you can just divide that by how many gallons per day. And you come up with a formula. You wanna tie in, yes, you paid a betterment before, but, or something, it's $5,000, let's say, and these developers will pay that.
It has to be.
Yeah, it's the cost of doing business. So, available funds, we're not bringing in stabilization. Harbor service permit fees, those are paying for the debt from the onset pier. That's the interest, and that's proper use of the fund. Community preservation, that's for their debt. Waterways improvement, we always bring those funds back in to help offset part of the DNR harbor master portion. And wetlands protection, to increase that pays for the conservation officer and some of the other things. So those are generated from the fees that that comes from the fees they generate. So all told, about 2.685 million in new revenue. It's, in a way, it's a little bit higher because when you got everything last fiscal year, we were plus about 520,000 when it comes down to it. So sometimes you'll see, wait a minute, your debt, your costs kind of increased about 300,000, but you're only showing 2.5 in new revenue, but it's really, you're almost carrying that other fund into this, and I'll show you that in the draft revenue sharing later on. So, and that one is a pure draft. It needs a lot of work, but it's I got the engine turned over on it. Not quite street ready.
It looks like Jody has got his hand up. Jody, do you have a question?
No,
Oh,
He was high-fiving us on a good job, so.
just feeling enthusiastic.
Right. The rest of these are just sort of the departmental budgets, and I think probably the best is to go over them during the during our meeting. But when you look at it, just so anybody listening, you're looking at about 445,000, a little over in departmental wages out of 12 plus million, and 200,000 in expenses out of about 3.8 million. And so that's an increase of about $646,000. There is some changes in departments, some that are kind of attrition, some that are increasing on there with some of the clerical things like that. So, but again, we'll go over that. Talking to the school department, I know they wanted a lot more. We're looking at about a little over 3% increase for them at $1,255,000. $1,09,255. So then if we go to page 4 of 4, going through here, the fixed costs, the first ones are the debt exclusion. That's a gazinga and a gazaga to what you have up on your debt revenue. Just whatever the actual debt costs are for the new school debt is what you booked in the revenue in the top. So just a pure offset. Debt principal, you will see a reduction in that. Those funds in there are actually next fiscal year. There will be $125,000 payment left within in the budget, which I believe is the last bit of the Deacon's roof. It's the last payment for that, and then the rest of it will start picking up from the middle school roof. Why is there a decline? There's a decline because we had, the middle school roof is in two phases. The first one, we'd anticipate about 1.5 million, the total cost came in about 995,000. My belief is with free cash, we had certified about 7.5 million today. I still haven't gotten the notification, but that's what we believe it to be. I think we pay off that $1 million rather than borrowing for that in 10 years, especially when we're hitting sort of a tight crunch. If we've got the cash to do it, let's do it. And then the rest of that point, the only debt we will have outside of, the CPA and things like that are paid from dedicated sources will be for the school, for the middle school roof. And again, this community preservation, the harbor services are for what we went over in the revenue section. Veterans assessments, just seeing small increase on there to bring in line. Pays for, as I said, for the veterans. Serped, I haven't gotten the increase yet. I guess it's probably a little over 5,000 maybe with the 2.5% increase, but we'll see. Yeah, so in that case, if there's another 0.5% in there, I'll have to figure out where to find $25. So I think we can do it. All right, so here's the big one going into some of the benefits line. The pension retirement contribution, that's Plymouth County retirement. This is the big increase we know because they voted the larger increase for the retired employees during the inflation, which got them about $400 more per year, which that's not making anybody rich, but in that environment for somebody fixed income and considering what Social Security benefits are getting, I thought it was good of Plymouth County to do that to take care of the retirees. So that's a $735,000, $113 increase. That's not all because of that, but that's you basically funded that full obligation in the 1 year. We know the next 4 years thereafter will be in the range of 7 to 7.6%. So this is our biggest increase for there. So next year we'll be looking at about a $450,000 increase. LIUNA is a Laborers International Union pension, and there's been no change to that. That used to be lower, but they had some surcharges as that pension nearly went defunct. And you had the option to pay the surcharges at a lesser amount, and the employees lose their benefit, or pay a slightly higher amount and employees keep their benefits basically. And I said, why wouldn't we just pay the extra couple $1,000? So yeah, that one started stabilizing on us, and the ones that are eligible for that are the clerical union laborers, water pollution control facility laborers, and the 4-persons union. Jerry, did you have a question about the pension? Your hands are going.
Are you going to, that's going to be paid off in a few years, isn't it?
Yep, good question. After 4 years, you start going into, you're not doing the catch-up anymore,
Yeah.
so 2029 is the year. That's when, God willing, we're all here. We have a really interesting thing to think about, because you'll probably, at that point, your assessment will be about $8-9 million, and it'll go down to about 2.7 million. So that's
That's 2.7 instead of the 6.3, so you'll have
Yeah.
that the cash to put towards.
correct.
Yeah.
So that's I'm thinking that's when you start making the plans for your new police station, something like that, to have a capital, and then you try and figure out what you need to operate this town going forward. There has been a vote to put it into the OPEB liability. If you did that, within 10 years, you'd fully fund your OPEB liability. So, not the
Know what I wanna do.
not the most attractive.
Know what I wanna do.
So, but that's just something to think about. That has been what's voted, but we'll see where it actually goes. Ironically, the Plymouth County retirement, because there's a teacher retirement, and then there's Plymouth County retirement. When we last did the audit of it, 56% of the pension liability was for school employees. So, there used to be, they were at about 41%, but that has changed, so. May something to look at again. So workers' comp, that's from the audit. Again, we had the increase plus you'll see just your regular annual increase at about $75,000. General liability is doing well. I'm projecting just a $25,000 increase. I'm going to double check that one. That might be something that just the way when we start getting our rates, that could be a slight delta we'll have to look at. Here's the big one. This is the big assumption, capital A and the rest of the letters. In speaking with the superintendent, we know there's going to be loss of some folks that are on our plans for health insurance. And this is where, although I'm projecting about a 4.5% overall increase with some bodies going away, I believe we will be more in line with staying flat on it. So again, that's usually I'd like to see that go up a little bit higher. So you're funding that, because if you put in extra, no big deal. That's our own money. We're not being charged it, and that's going towards things like free cash. That's concern. Life insurance, we're still within that $20,000 to $25,000 range in annual costs, so parking 30 there is fine. FICA, that's what you have to pay for the insurance, for basically the Medicare insurance, and we pay 1.45% of salaries. So that one we've been traditionally lagging on that, so I'm trying to boost a little bit into there.
Derek, something just clicked. On a pension retirement of $6,000,003, there's both the town
Yes.
and the non-union of the school,
Yeah, well, they might be union, but those are non-teachers.
not the non-teachers.
Correct.
Okay, so the non-teachers of the school are in this 6.3,
Correct, yeah.
and you said that was about 51%?
About 56%.
So half of this amount could be allocated to the school.
Correct, yeah, a little over that.
Okay, and is that also true for the medical insurance?
Yeah, medical insurance, and I've got a document on the end of this that we can go over that what sort of breaks it down, and I think if you're okay waiting for that, Jerry.
Sure.
But, valid questions, and we've been trying to, fixed costs a lot of times are considered almost a shared cost, but my understanding is what I've been requested more and more is, let's see what the actual picture is, so everybody understands what's going on. And I think I've got that, which will hopefully answer later on. All right, so folks, $841,814 increase. Big sizable increase, most of it the pension. Thankfully, again, we've been conservative on the medical insurance, and we'll also see, unfortunately, some loss of positions. That's not anything to celebrate. Just so you know, we don't fund our unemployment within the budget anymore. So we always put money aside at town meetings to make sure you have it, because there'll be some years you have a $25,000 cost. There's gonna be some you have a $400,000 or $500,000 cost. And it just didn't make any sense to park money in there and reduce positions before. So out of free cash, I'm going to recommend several $100,000 be put into that and bring it up to, I think we'll have about $500,000-600,000, which should be safe. And if we have to, next fiscal year, as it's trending, we'll use the next round, free cash for it. But again, I don't see it as it's more like a internal trust fund, if you will, rather than a budget line item. All right, and we break this down later. in that form, but the state and county assessments, you know, 516,000. The big drivers for that are the teachers, retired teachers' health insurance, which was well over 100,000, and then the choice and charter school tuition. Choice was was pretty minimal, but charter school was a drastic increase. And then you know, Dominic knows about this one, obviously. Upper Cape Cod Tech, we have about what 17 new students in there. There's a slight increase. Interestingly enough, their net school spending, they're a couple percentage points above 100%, and I believe we range from 125 to 130%. So I know people like to get on Upper Cape Cod Tech. Those are our students. It's a good school program. There is something in there that we're working with. The superintendent over there, Mr. Forget, has been very helpful. We believe that we're getting charged about 8 extra kids that are not ours, that are
You know, 25, we're getting charged for, we only have 17.
17, so 8 kids that, you know, are ghost kids. I look at that, I factored out to be about 100 grand.
150,000.
Yeah,
We did the numbers the other night. It's
okay,
approximately 150,000.
yeah, so that's really, so I spoke to Representative Gifford on it, she's asked me to send the information, we're trying to get it. I think it's happened once in the past, about 2 students or something, you know, which is, you know, but especially in a year like this, we can't take the hit, and I will tell you, that nobody was more upset than that, than Mr. Forget. He was, you know,
How would that happen? Don, do you know?
Roger called the DOR, and he says, we'll go back and check your records. And they just shunned him off, like, you're wrong. You know, DOR's right, you're wrong. He says, well, you know, we have the numbers, we have the students.
He
And
said,
they didn't want to hear about it.
I can literally line up the kids.
Yeah.
1, 2.
And the person that he was talking with says, well, count them again.
Yeah.
It's like they don't want to be wrong,
Wow.
but they're wrong. Like,
So,
yeah, we get charged 25, and we only have 17, and it's around $150,000. It's crazy.
yeah.
That's gotta get fixed.
But he's also said that in past years we've been down 1.
Yeah.
So they always seem to be wrong.
If it were 1 or 2, maybe.
We've seen
we
it
would
both
even
ways
know.
and kind of
Right,
a 1 or
both
2,
ways,
which
yeah.
is, hey, you know, it's, sometimes, you know,
Sometimes
you get
you lose,
yeah.
But this is a lot.
Yeah, it's too substantial not to do anything, so we're sending it out to the Representative Gifford and, you know.
I gotta call out to her too to
Yeah,
talk to her.
see what, so we'll see what can do, yeah, I think she had mentioned that too, so that's substantial right there, the $478,435. Rumblings that I'm hearing is from the legislature, from what you know, what you'll see from the Senate budget as well, might be some more robust Chapter 70 numbers. But honestly, if that were to, I think this is the budget we sort of stick with, and if that were to occur, I would rather hold steady, as we took a couple big jumps on the local receipts that, you know, it's probably outside my normal comfort zone, but I just don't see taking more out of the budget overall, you know, so. All right, this next one is the draft, and it is in the world's smallest print. I apologize, I'm trying to figure out how to make it work. So, just when you look at this is something I've done before, and it's always a little torturous, but you look at it, trying, the first column to the left is what you call the shared revenue, shared expenses.
So this is basically an analysis of where
Yeah.
everything is.
So you've got the property tax, you know, that's everybody's. You know, there's some other state aid in there, and again, that's the things that, because there'll be a direct cost offset, that's neither designated to the town or the schools. Some of the local receipts, you know, could I probably say they're all the town, because we collect the money, we do this, yeah, but, you know, some of them just sort of lodging, the meals that, you know, the families eat in town. It's really not pushing anything to there. And that's where I think I might be missing a few of them. I was trying to figure out the offset, but then, and that's why this won't tick and tie, but I brought in what we actually had for sort of the new revenue. Then you have the expenses offset. You'll see the prior year surplus deficit brought over. That's what you utilize to actually, because it will be off by that difference, because you're comparing one year to the other. So you almost need that as your offset adjustment. And that's why you see it bringing up the revenue to about 2.6 million. You then take the debt, you know, as sort of some of the costs. The debt is actually a bonus because it's reduced, so that's an offset. Health insurance, then you'll see some of the non-school cherry sheet assessments, non-school in the town, the general and workers comp insurance increase. You know, I'm trying to figure out where to place these, but I wanted to get this done so you can see the concept tonight. So overall, you see about the 2.665 at the end. Does that make sense? Then you start going with the town. You've got the unrestricted general government aid, that wetlands, the permit fees, the motor vehicle excise, the boat excise, which is less, and then the rentals. That's all. Those are all town associated. That's what, you know, motor vehicle excise, you almost always consider that with municipal maintenance. The permit fees, that's what between planning and inspectional services. So that's a plus 495,000. Then you start going with the cost adjustments here. So Plymouth County retirement, the approximate, so that'd be about the 44%. That's a town cost. Health insurance slight positive because of the reduction. So overall, with those costs, the town is plus $170,000. Right. So then you go to the school. You've got the Chapter 70, the charter reimbursement, the Medicaid. Again, that's the school, so they get the good and the bad. It's a reduction because there hasn't been as much collection. So total new revenue for schools, 8,700. Then you go to the costs. Retired teachers' health insurance, 190,425. Special education from the cherry sheet, $11,952. Charter school sending tuition, $274,000. Choice sending, $24,000. Upper Cape Cod Tech, $478,000. Plymouth County retirement. Then the slight positive from the health. So that's almost 1.2 million in costs before you even get to their budget. So they're at negative 1.18 million in new costs. So what you do is you take the column A, that 2.6 million, and you can split it 50-50. So 1.3 to the town, 1.3 to the school. Then you add what the actual revenue is for each one. So with the 170, it brings up the town to about 1.5 million. The school to 152,000. Okay, that's pretty dramatic, right? So you go to that was on a 50-50. You go on a 40-60, 40 to town, 60 to the school, which ends up, you know, same thing, except that option A now instead of 50-50 is 40 to the town, 60 to the school. So that's 1.2 million to the town, 418,000 to the school. All right, we're still not there yet. So if you do that, so then you're at now 33.67, 33% to the town. That's at $1,049,000 and then 605, which is almost the exact opposite of what we actually have in the budget.
Right.
So just trying to show, you know, you start hearing the towns, you know, the schools are, you're balancing the town's budget on the backs of the school. It is the exact opposite. Now we go to sheet number 6, and which is actually in some sort of normal font. So this is what I know has been asked. So I tried to do it over the last 2 years, so a comparison. Net school spending, that's the budget that we give to the school for their, you know, salaries, things like that. That does not include transportation. So we're about, we'll go with FY '25, right? So we're about 31.7 million almost, so the $1 million increase. Non-net school transportation, held that even because I don't know how the school wants to spread that $1 million out. Then the debt exclusion, I mean, that's realistic, that's $999 increase, so 1,000, but that's about 1.66 million that the taxpayers are paying. Non-excluded debt, the school roof, the middle school roof, 607,000. Plymouth County retirement, 3.56. Workers' comp, this is where I broke it down, 251,000, almost 252,000. General liability insurance, 322,000. Health insurance, keeping it the same on both, that's 4.891. That's based off of actually last fiscal year, FY '23's actual health insurance cost. FICA, 413,000, I just gave it a percentage out of that. Special education assessment, 19,000. School choice sending, 1.7 million. Charter school sending, 2.76 million. Upper Cape Cod Tech, 3.78 million. So it's a total of $56,146 and $416,524. Almost $3 million increase, even though you were only showing $1 million to the school's budget. That means they are now 68.77, almost 69% of the total operating budget. And that's where you start thinking about it and running the town on 31% of that.
You know, I appreciate, because you don't usually see the figures for the Plymouth County retirement and the health insurance, you know?
Yeah.
And you broke it out, and it's big figures.
It's a
It is.
percentage jump huge.
Yeah, you know, so then that's why when you see, so again, if somebody's saying to me, well, you know, the school's getting $1 million and the town's getting 600,000, you need to just give it all to the school. Well, no, you were already seeing the jump that's going, because those are actual educational costs. I understand that the money we're sending to Upper Cape Cod Tech is not going to our school buildings. I understand charter and choice, and it is not. But those are the costs for educating the children of this community. And that's what we're talking about, right? The children.
Right.
So,
And you're saying that 56 million, 68% is roughly of the total expenses,
that's the total operating.
total operating
Yeah.
expenses, right?
You know, and interesting, you know, what I didn't deduct was you could reduce it because we've got in our healthcare, in our workers' comp, general liability, and some others, we've got the offset receipt of the EMS, which is actually a separate budget. And you've got the enterprise fund as well that we're paying in there, which would technically lower this from the operating budget, you know, so.
Yeah, but to get real scratchy, you don't have the depreciation expense for the school or the buildings either, you know, which is a cost to the town, because that's what's on audited financial statements, is depreciation expense.
I didn't include the capital, like the school, the high school boiler, the money we put towards those types of things, but I'm only doing what's in the actual
Yeah,
budget.
the cash part, yeah.
So, like, it's, nobody wins in sort of the town civil war, if well, when it comes down to that. But I think this is to give a better understanding for everybody of where their money goes. Cause I would love to be able to give every service in the world, you know, out of a strictly selfish basis. My life would be easier if I could just say yes to everything and get it all done.
But
You
this
know?
is great.
When you look at it this way, you should check my math, but I figure it's actually about an 8.5% increase to the schools.
So,
Not pulling out, okay.
so it's so yeah, it's a tough job. There's, you know,
It's important, it's very
Yeah.
important, but we have what we have to work with.
Right. So, it was a struggle to get these things into the school and town budget. You know, but it's, you know, when I first came on board, I think like I said, our minimum net school spending it had been down to 98%, it had been around 102, and we brought it up to 125 to 131%. Yes, there's communities higher, but that's bringing us into the mid-range at least, and you know that's an effective amount. And we have a high needs population, so yes, our costs are sometimes higher, but you can't say that the town, the residents of this community are not supporting the schools and the educational system, because they're giving what they can with what we have within our budget.
Thank you for, obviously, a great deal of hard work on this. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's, the apologize, not as much bells and whistles, but this was more the belts and suspenders. We're just going back and forth, and, you know, each time I make a change, 12 different graphs I have to, you know.
But breaking these out was, we've never had that ability before. You've never done that before.
Yeah, no, it's,
It makes a big, you know, makes it more transparent. You know, you can put it over here, but then when you break it down to what comes out of school, it's a plus to see it.
and then you'll see, you know, Jerry sees it obviously on the audits and stuff.
Yeah.
There's federal grants outside the ESSER from our cafeteria, from other things that they're on top of it, but we don't budget that, so I don't include that into the calculation.
Yeah, we bring all the accrual stuff in and the depreciation. You know, you take big buildings like the school buildings, you depreciate. That's an expense.
It's huge.
Yeah. So but you don't see that in here.
Saves me money every year. I like depreciation.
Jody, do you have anything you'd like to ask or add on this part of our agenda?
Well, I got plenty of things to add, but I want to wait till a later time when I can face them in person.
Okay. I thought you probably had some thoughts.
Yeah, nothing earth-shattering. I thought it was very interesting. I liked the idea of breaking some of these things out.
I do.
I watched a presentation from CLA. They're an accounting company out of Quincy, to present the budget, and he did all those things tonight, which
Good.
I thought was very good. Thank you.
I do think a big part of, you know, our function as supporting whatever we support to the town, for town meeting, is got to be communicating why we think this is the right thing to do. If in fact this is what we think is the right thing to do, we have to be able to justify that. And I think this kind of information goes a long way toward doing that.
We know that given what they have for their current budget, that this will involve reductions for the school, and that's where I wanted everybody to see we're not shifting or taking things away. It's a total educational cost this year that was, you know, really difficult.
Yes. All right, shall we go on to the next item on the agenda, which is ideas. Jody wanted to address the committee with some ideas about how we might think about making the town budget better going forward in terms of possibly consolidating positions and things like that. Jody, would you like to do that now?
I'll do the best I can from here.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand. It's not ideal.
My thought was, and if anybody has better ideas, certainly I'm sure we're all open to it, is consolidating some of the jobs in town between the school and the town side. I had mentioned this to Mr. Sullivan, and I think he kind of yesed me to death a little bit, not sure, but that's okay. Is take some of these departments that we're kind of duplicating the work, and we could help each other out. And I don't want to mention any departments. I don't want people to think I'm promoting doing away with something in the school side or the town side, but I think is bringing somebody that's more of an expert than certainly I am, to look at the whole town and say, what can we do? Can we consolidate, this department together? And I'm gonna use business because they're both very important to both sides. Maybe work together. And, you know, it takes money. I'm not sure how much money. I kinda fell upon this presentation I saw from this accounting company. You know, it was interesting. I'm not sure what else they do. They seem to be a pretty big firm, but I would like the idea of having somebody come in and looking at the whole town. And I know there's gonna be pushback from departments. There always is, but I think we need to consolidate things and make things work more efficiently. And that's what I'm looking at.
Derek, do you have thoughts on that? What the resources might be, or whether there is a need for something like this?
Yeah, it's tough. We've gone a little bit through this before. We proposed to have one common sort of finance director, I remember, and there was more concern as to who the person answered to, which, you know, for lack of a better term, sometimes I don't give a hoot about that. It's, you know, we know that the assistant town administrator, HR director actually does a lot of HR work for the school, and it's, if the superintendent needs her, calls her, and there's been times, you go down and say, hey, she's like, oh no, I need to go over there. You be respectful of one another in those situations. So, you know, I've never let an org chart stop a good idea or something. You know, I'd be interested to see what could be possibly. You know, it's no matter what, it'll cause some consternation with staff. Everybody's going to think you're pulling the rug out from under me or such. So, you know, you'll also hear the complaints about taking up time doing these sorts of things. But, you know, the closest we've come is, I don't think people remember this. The municipal maintenance department took on the two school mechanics. So we have 4 mechanics, 2 of them were school mechanics. It didn't give us more, but it made us more efficient that during snow and ice times, they can concentrate on the snow and ice equipment. When it comes time for the buses coming up for their inspections or doing anything, you've got 4 persons working on that. So, you know, and there's still always little hiccups, you know, as to, you know, sometimes the equipment, is that a town, is that a school? Well, you know, the school pays for their bills for, you know, different things from oil to diff fluid, things like that, and the town has different contractors, and you know, so it's still a little crazy, but it did help out in a weird way. This is what I laughed about. I was like, you know, I look at that, that's like $120,000 artificial increase to your municipal maintenance budget. That's really covering some of the school costs on there too. But
So
yeah.
I guess my question is there, either through the state or something like that, a way to get an outside pair of eyes on just sort of how things work between the schools and the town, within the town? And I'm saying this as, you know, we're the finance committee, we can't make anything happen. We don't have a budget to do something like this. It's really not our job. All we can do is just try to come up with ideas that we hope will help make your job better. And that's where I'm coming from, certainly on this. Jody and I have talked about it a little bit. Is there that kind of resource available to us that we should be trying to access?
I'll take a look at it. There, you know, the the DLS from the portion of the Division of Local Services from the DOR does certain things. We've done it from financial, they do make recommendations, sometimes sharing things, that's, they make recommendations for a lot of, do away with archaic things like elected treasurer, elected collectors, things like that. And I just don't know, sometimes with the territoriality of DESI and DOR, so never shall they meet in the middle, or something, but, we can take a look at it. I think what everybody's fear is you're gonna get the Bobs from Office Space or something like that, which is absolutely what we don't, what we don't want, so. I think if we put our heads together, we can try and find something that, then we'll look at it and see whether it makes sense.
Yeah, but, on that, you're right, I think consolidating things doesn't mean people are gonna lose their jobs, you're just gonna make things more efficient.
Right,
And, Derek brought up about the maintenance department, my thought was, the schools have groundskeepers. If you put them under maintenance for the town side, they can still do their fields, but they can do other things. I mean, I've done fields, so I mean, it just seems like you could utilize the people a little bit more efficiently. And nobody loses their job, it's just more efficiently. The equipment needs repairs, everything, working under one service contract for equipment, things like that, but, I know territorial, I know there's gonna be people thinking this is all about taking jobs away, but not necessarily, it's making it run more efficiently.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on any of this?
I was just thinking, the cost of a study, the time involved to do it, and then if you do have a plan, you have to implement it, that means you have to have buy-in,
Which doesn't always happen.
and that seldom works.
Well,
Well, I thought we should
Hopefully
put
not
it
me.
out there.
You're young.
You heard us, I'm sure.
yeah, and I think it's something, like Jody, I'm not gonna yes you to death on it, I give you the good and sort of the bad, and I think it's something we sit down again over a coffee, maybe a sandwich if you're buying, and take a look at it, and what I'll do too is put it out on maybe like a listserv and see if there's anything that anybody's utilized that worked well,
Cross-reference.
yeah,
I think that's a great idea.
so.
I think it's just something worth looking at.
Sure.
It may be a good or bad idea.
Yeah, the last time we've done anything like that, I think, was the DLS report for just an operational report, and it got a little bit into to some of the school, but I don't think it went that far. So, and the gentleman that used to be my contact in there got promoted out. So, but I'll reach out to him and see if there's something like that.
Great, thank you. All right,
Thank you.
I think the rest of this, unless you are interested in weighing in, I don't know that we need you for the rest of the meeting, and I bet you'd like to go home.
I've put enough hot air into the room.
I disagree.
Well, thank you very much. I
Your-
appreciate
your,
everybody's time tonight.
Yeah, your professionalism is always appreciated.
Thank you.
All right,
All right, have a great evening, everyone.
thank you. So, moving on to the next item on the agenda, and I put this out here, discussion of possible proposed changes to the town charter, specifically Article 5.3 about the budget deadline. As we have seen this week, the charter requires that the budget come to us January 25th. But as we have seen this week, Derek didn't even have the information from the governor's office until January 25th. There is really no way for him reasonably to get something to us on that timeline. We can't just make it no deadline, I don't think, but I think we could bump it down to something like February 25th, or we could even be a little bit looser and allow us to set a deadline that's appropriate for the circumstances. We don't have to do anything on this tonight, but because we are subject to the open meeting law, we really can't talk about this except if it's on an agenda. I'm interested in what you have to say, Alan.
The Board of Selectmen has already discussed, and I believe we're gonna put a warrant article in, because the dates have been moved before. The dates originally used to be like November, December.
That's
Which was
impossible.
really wonderful since, the state can get their budget done until August of this past year for the
Right.
previous year.
Right.
So we're gonna, Derek is basically supposed to have his budget ready by January 25th. The school is supposed to be done like a month before that, capital planning was a month before that. So we're gonna push everything back up, and we're gonna put the budget toward the end of March. Because I made arrangements a while back to move town meeting, and the election we changed a little bit, because we used to have the election before town meeting, and how do you have new people that get elected to the board sit up at town meeting and defend stuff they had nothing to do with? So the times have changed, so probably the best thing to do is sit down with Judy and see exactly what the dates are. I did basically add about 30 days from where it is, but I think I went into somewhere in March for the actual budget timeframe, which gives you guys
Can we
enough time.
piggyback on that warrant?
Oh, I think probably the thing to do is, maybe we can give some input on what we think is appropriate. And obviously, we'll get the chance to hear it if it's an article for town meeting and weigh in at that point.
Yeah, we'll pick the actual final date, and then we'll plug it back in
Okay.
to make sure it works for everybody.
I
But
think
right now, it doesn't work.
it doesn't, it's not reasonable, and why would we have a requirement in the charter that's unreasonable?
Because it was been there forever,
It is,
which is a bad answer.
it's a terrible answer.
I'm going to also just, I'm gonna reach out to Serpent to find out if they have internally the ability to come up with people that could sit down and look at the town's departments, all departments, and see if there's ways to look at how to make it more efficient. The other one possibility is over at Holy Cross. There's I forget the institution of Holy Cross that a lot of towns, municipalities hire to come in and do studies on different things as well. And Derek might have somebody at Suffolk University that has some assets. We also have the ability to talk to Fred over at Bridgewater State University. They have good contacts there, and they have their MPA program. You can reach out to them as well. So.
I think that's a great idea. I think of this as a potential management audit. It doesn't have to be, super extensive. I just think somebody else taking a little bit of time to look at how we're doing things, who knows something about how things are done other places, might have a few good ideas.
I would think like a university, especially like Bridgewater State, where they're a college and became a university, they had to do some internal studies and internal workings, how to make it go from one to the other. And when you add different specialties, you still have to, how they interact with each other, buildings, everything. Right now, the problem we have, I've tried this before, and, off the record, the school committee doesn't think the Board of Selectmen should have any say in what they do, as an example, and vice versa. So what you have is you have a school superintendent, you have a town administrator. There is really no easy exchange back and forth. You have an accounting department over here, you have an accounting department over at the school. The accounting department here has to correct the problems of the other place. So it's like not animosity, but it's not easy. There should be a central purchasing agent for the town. We finally got a HR person, took a long time. There's a lot of things can be done, but it's a matter of people, taking the silo, breaking it open, and just working as one. Because it aggravates me, but it's the town of Wareham. It's not the town of the school department. It's not the town of municipal maintenance or anything else. It's the same thing we have with our two districts, the fire and water districts. They actually work together. If you ask the actual person, they don't think they do. They really do. They just don't make it public. And that's what happens. So we used to have business manager on the school department, Mike, I forget Mike's last name, he went to Cohasset. He and Derek was like, you know, it's just unbelievable how good it was. And when he left, it kind of fell out again. So you just have to have people that are willing to sit down and forget all the other stuff and start from scratch.
Would there be any resources in the MMA?
MMA does seminars and stuff. MMA normally, what they do is, they do things that are an overall for all 351 municipalities. If Wareham had a particular narrow area, they don't step up to do that. It's gotta be overall. So we can reach out to the Mass Municipal Association, I've got contacts there obviously, and ask, have you ever done a program like this? They take and they teach classes at Suffolk University also, so they have contacts. I mean, if you wanna, you like a finance community, if you wanna get a further education in municipal maintenance, municipal, administration, they have things for you to increase your abilities.
There's actually a webinar next week on finance.
Yep. They do that, they do it 2 or 3 times a year, but what we're asking for is a lot deeper than what I think they do. I think this is more superficial. But the answer is, I always tell people, it doesn't hurt if you ask for something, but the worst they can do is say no.
Well, if we decide to do something like that and reach out to one of the universities, I am good friends with Fred, so I can approach him if that's the way, the route that we wanna take.
Yeah, we have I reached out to them quite a few years back, when Fred was not yet chancellor, he was about to come in, and we started an intern program over there, and we have a good relationship with him.
Good.
I have him on speed dial.
You have a lot of people on speed dial,
But I
Alan.
mean, it's available to us.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's, shall we move on to the sort of parallel to that in talking about things that are difficult or impossible? I believe that we should ask the bylaw review committee, which is currently undergoing a complete review of all of the town bylaws, to reduce the number of finance committee members from 9 to 7. I've found it extremely difficult to find new people. We are, running on 7 right now. I've reached out to a lot of people. This is a town that has so many volunteer positions, and it's just, we're spread too thin, I think. And I don't see why 7 people can't do the job just as well as 9, but I'm definitely interested in hearing if anybody here has other thoughts about that. I think it would be fairly easy for us to just decide to ask for that, and then it's not gonna happen right away, but it would be, when there's ultimately a complete revision of the bylaws, that would be done.
But you wanna take and change it from 9 to 7?
Yes.
You can do it for this town meeting if you want.
As a standalone, I mean,
You
that's,
could
that's
ask,
true.
you could ask the board of selectmen with a recommendation for you and just we put it in. Do it all the time.
What do other people think about that?
7,
Yeah.
this town meeting, yeah.
Okay.
Okay?
Don's not.
If you don't, you're gonna be too short until
Yeah,
the next one.
correct.
I'd say put it on your next agenda and vote on it and then send it off and make sure we get it in time for the town meeting.
Jody, any thoughts?
Yeah, I got mixed feelings on this. I mean, this is not unique to Wareham by any means. Unfortunate that people just, their lifestyles have changed and all that. I get it. And I feel bad for you, Norma, always worrying about a quorum. I mean, it's not always easy when starting out too short. And I have been thinking about this. I don't know if it'd be worth putting something maybe in the Wareham Weekly saying, what, these committees, especially the finance committee, I mean, we only make recommendations. We don't meet a lot. But I think the more opinions you have on money issues, whether you agree or not agree, isn't important. It's ideas is good, but I certainly understand and I would support if you went down to 7, but it's just sad. I'm just, and this goes all the way to Cub Scouts, all the way up to finance committees. It's just they can't get volunteers, period.
And it's not that, I mean, we have a lot of volunteers in this town, we have a lot of people doing a lot of hard work. There just are so many different roles, and finance committee, especially, I think it's important to have a broad range of views, of experience, which we have now. I think what we have works really well, and I think 7 people is enough. But I will put that on the agenda, not for the workshop, obviously, but the next time we meet, to request. Do we have a deadline for articles for the, for Springtown meeting? Do you know what it is?
The top of my head, no.
I'll ask the boss.
It will be in the selectmen's office, we already posted it.
Okay, I'll take a look.
I think it's the last week of February for the, yeah. You know, I mean, you could
Yeah,
put an
because
agenda item.
it won't be a citizen's petition article, it will be an article submitted by probably the board of selectmen, at the request of the finance committee.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
All right. I will check on that.
And the same thing for the dates, you know, like I say, we were
Sure.
planning to do it anyways, because I had suggested, because Derek and I were talking, it just doesn't work.
It doesn't.
So I was gonna, like I say, I was already planning to move that, but you can say out or back, depending which way you wanna look at it, but move it to a more reasonable timeframe.
All right. Next item on the agenda is discussion of recruitment of additional finance committee members. And I just really wanted to put out there, if you have thoughts, if people watching have thoughts about who might fill these spots in the meantime, we will have terms that are ending at the end of June. So we always need to have people out there who would be willing to step up.
No, who's up in June?
That's a good question,
You
and
don't know.
I can't tell you off the top of my head,
No
but
problem.
I will look into that.
No problem.
Oh, well, I'm up in June, actually, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, starting there,
Gonna reapply?
I likely will,
Okay.
but I'm not making any promises right now. I think it's possible Matt is also up. And I think we're both eligible to serve again.
Yeah.
All right, does anybody have any liaison reports tonight?
No, just, I think I've said pretty much everything, you know, on upper tech. There's only one, what's that? I'm up in June, okay. There were just some numbers that were brought up that you might wanna know, as far as, you know how the state says, you know, the funding, you're allowed so much funding, you know, per student for thing. Well, upper tech is, 700,000 overfunded, and Wareham's 8 million.
8.2.
8.2, okay.
What is the
overfunded.
total enrollment above Cape?
300, no, 7, hold on. Give you that number in 1 second.
Wait, Dominic, when you say overfunded, it should be more, the DESI puts like what they call their minimum.
Right,
Minimum, right,
So it's not overfunding, it's DESI has a minimum they wanna see each school system do.
but in,
Because we used to be, when Derek before Derek came in, we were 2% under,
yeah,
for 12 and a half years ago.
but for what, to make Wareham actually look better, Sandwich and Falmouth are like 20 million over. So we're
I mean,
doing, we're not the worst out of the towns that are
No.
involved. Give me 1 second, I will get that number for you, Norma.
I think if the number we're at, considering the assets that are available, I think it's a great job funding. Because the school always comes back and says we're underfunding, and they've never really looked at the numbers properly.
You can move on, I'll get it
it's
for you in a
like
minute.
roughly I don't need an exact number, but
Yeah.
is it like roughly 400?
I wanna say it's a little less than that.
Well, I mean, obviously, Wareham schools are 2,000 students, so it's not that much of a disparity, but your point is well taken, I think. All right, anything else under liaisons? Capital planning met today, right?
Yes, we basically went over the what we're going to do in the next 2 or 3 meetings. We're just
In
laying the
preparation.
work plan out.
All right. All right, and I see no member of the public that I think is likely to want to say anything right now. So we will not have any public comment.
No, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. 772 students,
Okay. So that is a big difference.
and the percentage operating, sure, you can look at that if you want.
Sandy just sent me a note, Dominic, Matt, and Norma, 2024 terminus.
I didn't hear you.
Your term is up
Yeah, that's what,
as well.
you just said.
Thank you, Sandy.
No, I think
Thank you,
I
Sandy.
can renew, right?
Hmm?
I think I can reapply.
How many terms have you had?
I don't know, I have to look.
3 terms, isn't it?
Yeah, so since I took time off, it hasn't been 3 terms, I think this is the second one, so.
Okay, consecutive term.
Thank you. All right. Well, in that case, our next meeting is the budget workshop on Thursday, February 8th, starting at 9 o'clock. It's going to be in this room.
Here.
That is the plan.
Usually it's done in the
It
auditorium.
it's usually in the multipurpose, multi-service center, but it was Derek's suggestion actually to do it here. I think it's actually easier on the department heads who are in the building anyway, they don't have to walk across the parking lot, maybe don't have to be away from their desks as long, and there should be enough space with only 7 members. And only six of us will be here next week. Julie will still be out of the country at that point.
Can Jody be,
She's in Europe, she can't,
oh,
but she will watch the video. We've already talked about that.
Jody, you gonna be here next week?
Jody
Yes, I
will be back,
will.
yes,
Excellent.
yes. He planned his
Just for
trip,
you, Dominic.
he planned his
I
trip.
wanna see your smiling face, that's why.
So, and that will take almost all day, so just, I know that,
I would like to know the schedule beforehand.
I am waiting for the schedule from Derek. I think it's gonna be very similar to past years,
Yes.
except I believe the police chief needs to come earlier in the day.
Yeah, so the early part, I'm always here for the first couple hours.
Yeah. So I will attach that to the agenda, which will probably be posted on Monday. All right?
I'm gonna be an hour late, I deliver meals on
Oh.
Thursdays, and I had been out sick for a few weeks with them, so I really owe it to them that
It will-
Thursday. So
That should be fine.
just an hour.
Yeah, that should be fine. All right, but if anyone else finds they're not gonna be there, please let me know. We will scramble however we have to. All right, well, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Roll call vote. Jody?
Aye.
Dom?
Aye.
Jerry?
Yes.
Heidi?
Yes.
And Norma, yes. It's unanimous. All right, thank you, folks.